You know what? It gets kind of hard sitting on the floor the whole time. This is not super comfortable. And also, I think you can tell that Toothless is sometimes where you can see her, and sometimes she's coming back to her corner. And I don't know if it's the light coming in from the window, but I do feel like she really wants to get out of there. I do hold her sometimes. She just doesn't quite get as much attention as she does with all of you guys. So if you hear some scratching noises in the back, it's probably Toothless. PW111, I hope, is fairly simple for you. You're comparing and ordering fractions, and the worksheet gives you pictures to use to help you see the difference. When it doesn't give you pictures, you can try drawing your own simple picture and dividing it up and seeing what you think is bigger or smaller. They might not be perfect, but for example, number 4, when it is asking you to compare what is greater, what is the greater fraction, 1/3 or 1/4, and it doesn't give you a picture, you can take and you can draw just a small bar and then another one right below it that's the same length. One of them is really easy to divide because it's in fourths. So you always start and say there's half of that, half of that. Thirds are sometimes a little trickier, so you have to estimate and say, well, what would make 3 kind of equal parts? I don't expect you to measure and make it perfect, but you can see that's about there. If I only have 1 of 4 parts colored in, if I have 1 of 3 parts colored in, which fraction is greater? Which one has more? Kind of looks like the 1/3, right? That can help you with some of those other ones, but feel free to ask me if you have any questions. Mixed numbers, PW113. I actually really like looking at mixed numbers. Mixed number is made of a whole number and a fraction. So this is where we have things like 2 whole parts and 5/9, which may be the answer to your number 2 on the PW113. There are 2 whole squares colored in, and then there are 5 parts out of 9 in that third grid colored in. 2 and 5/9. So when you're looking at some of these pictures, look for how many whole pictures are shaded in, and write that number down as your large number, your whole number, and then just count the next piece like you did the other fractions. How many parts total are there? How many parts are shaded in? The hard part, or the part you need to learn now, is changing. We can change mixed numbers into something that just looks like a fraction. And when you look at numbers 5, 6, 7, and 8, they have some of these written, and they're asking you to switch between the two. Let me show you what we're doing here. We'll erase this. Let's look at number 5 on your paper. It says 16/3. Now, normally, we don't want a numerator that is bigger than our denominator. That seems weird. If we only have 3 parts total, how can we actually have 16 of them? Whether you've noticed it or not yet, do you know what this fraction bar actually symbolizes? This is a division sign. Fractions are division problems. What I'm really saying here is 16 divided by 3. So let's do it as a long division problem. Let's see, can I do 1 divided by 3? Does 3 fit into 1? No. So I must have to take this whole part. 16 divided by 3. I can fit 5 3s into 16 because 5 times 3 is 15. Subtract. I get a 1. And now what I do is I use my remainder, and instead of calling it a remainder, I'm going to say I have 5 whole parts and I still have one little part out of 3 to go with it. 16/3. We sometimes call it an improper fraction because the numerator is bigger than the denominator. 16/3 is the same as 5 whole parts and 1/3, a mixed number. So when you see a numerator that's bigger than the denominator, turn it into a division problem. 16 divided by 3. Do your division. And instead of writing remainder 1, use your 1 as your numerator and keep the original denominator. It's kind of fun. But what about going the other direction? What about if you have a mixed number, like in number 7, they give you 2 5/6, and they want you to change that to a fraction that looks like this. If you have a mixed number, we're just going to do the opposite. Division is the opposite of multiplication. So we can use multiplication to go backwards. And if I asked you to tell me what 5 1/3 is as a fraction, you do this. Multiply your whole number times your denominator. 5 times 3, because that's what we do in division. 5 times 3 equals 15. And when we're checking division problems, we always do 5 times 3 and then we add our remainder. Let's add the remainder. 5 times 3 is 15. After you get this, you add your remainder. 15 plus 1 is 16. And our denominator never changes. So we have 16/3, which is what we started with. Let me give you one that's not on your paper so that you can try some of your own. Let me give you 2 that are not on your paper to just show you, again, how we change something from a mixed number to a fraction and a fraction to a mixed number. Mr. Heiliger's over there. Will you give me an improper fraction? Numerator bigger than the denominator. We're just going to make one up and see if it works. 21/4. 21/4.
Sure.
All right, 21/4. 21/4, if we want to change it to a mixed number, we're going to turn it into a division problem. 21 divided by 4. 4 doesn't go into 2, so I can't do 2 divided by 4, but I can do 21 divided by 4. 21 divided by 4 is 5. 5 times 4 is 20. Subtract 1. Instead of calling it a remainder, I'm going to use that as my numerator. Keep the same denominator, 5 1/4. Now let's do a random mixed number, and that will be our last example. Let's have 3 5/6. 3 5/6. If we want to turn that into a fraction, we're going to take whole number times the denominator. 3 times 6 equals 18. Then we have to add our numerator to that. That's like our remainder. 18 plus 5 is 23. And so my answer is going to be 23, and I'm going to keep the same denominator, 6ths. 23/6 is how I would write it. So I hope you have fun with that one. Those are kind of neat to solve. Again, let me know if you have any questions, and we can talk about it at our next Zoom if you want. I hope you guys are having a great time and enjoying the nice weather. Goodbye.